The alien crowd roared as another warrior fell. The arena floor was stained with violet blood, echoing with the cheers of thousands of species gathered under the twin suns of Tharnak. The gladiators were legends here. Some were born of fire, others from ice. They stood over 10 feet tall, some with 4 arms, some with armored skin. But today, something unusual happened. The gate at the far end of the arena opened, and out rolled a chair with wheels, guided by a human without legs. Whispers spread through the stadium like wildfire. The crowd was confused. Their translator implants repeated the same phrase again and again. A human with no legs, a broken warrior. He wasn't wearing any visible weapons. No blades, no energy shield, no enhancements. Just light armor and a steel gaze that refused to blink. His name, projected above him in glowing alien glyphs, was Kade Brennan. The gladiators laughed from the other side of the arena. One of them, a brute with a hammer the size of a boulder, pounded his chest and snarled. "Earthling, this is no place for prey," another shouted. The crowd laughed louder, and some even threw dirt onto the battlefield. Kade didn't react. His hands calmly adjusted the controls on his armrest, and the chair let out a low mechanical hum. Nobody noticed the slight glow underneath the wheels, the faint power charge building inside the joints. The arena master raised his clawed hand and dropped it like a hammer. The battle was signaled to begin. 3 gladiators charged at Kade with laughter and bloodlust in their eyes. The crowd expected a scream, maybe a retreat. Instead, they witnessed something no one could explain. Kade tapped a switch on the side of his armor. In less than a second, 2 compartments on the chair burst open. Twin energy blades shot forward, burning orange like the sun. The humans' wheelchair surged forward with a speed that stunned even the fastest species. His blades didn't swing wildly. They moved with surgical precision. The first alien went down with a melted chest plate. The second's weapon was sliced in half before his eyes. The third gladiator hesitated, then attacked from behind, thinking the human couldn't turn quickly. But Kade's chair rotated mid-motion, its wheels gripping the ground like claws. One swipe was enough. The alien's weapon arm dropped to the sand, followed by the rest of him. The crowd was no longer laughing. There was silence, followed by gasps, followed by disbelief. High above in the royal box, the Tharnak warlords leaned forward. "Is that the crippled human the council refused to list on the betting boards?" one asked. "Yes," another replied. "They said he wouldn't last 10 seconds. They were wrong." Kade had trained for years, not just physically but mentally. He knew how they viewed him. He used it as his advantage. As more gladiators entered the field, Kade's tactics grew deadlier. He didn't fight like them. He fought smarter. He let their rage guide them, then punished their mistakes. His chair wasn't just a seat, it was a custom war machine built from salvage tech, Earth intelligence, and decades of strategy. He turned his disability into a weapon they couldn't predict. By the end of the first match, Kade had defeated 9 of the arena's fiercest warriors without taking a single wound. The blood on the ground wasn't his. The silence from the crowd turned into stunned respect. Even the warlord who had called him a joke moments earlier stood up, eyes locked on the human below. And as the doors opened again for the final combatant of the day, a 10-foot-tall champion made of steel and rage, Kade simply leaned forward. In his chair, tightened his grip on the handles, and said 2 words with calm fury. "Let's begin." The Tharnak champion's footsteps thundered across the arena. Each step shook the ground as the massive warrior approached, covered in armor carved from fallen stars. He carried a 2-handed plasma cleaver that hummed with a deadly pulse. His name was Garthak, undefeated for over 100 battles. His skin was metallic gray and reflected the twin suns, making him glow like a god of war. The crowd rose to their feet, believing the joke had finally come to an end. Kade did not rise. because he could not. But his posture did change. His back straightened. His eyes locked forward, and the arms of his chair released more hidden functions. Small pulse shields unfolded at his sides, and the glow around his wheels intensified. He looked calm, calculating, and not even slightly afraid. The champion swung the cleaver in a wide arc, cracking the sand in anticipation. "You are not a warrior," Garthek growled. "You are a pitiful insult to combat." But before the giant could finish his sentence, Kade launched forward, the boosters on his wheels flaring with sudden light. He didn't try to match strength. He aimed for precision. His first strike sliced just beneath Garthek's arm joint, exposing wires and muscle. The alien roared and swung in retaliation, but Kade was already gone. The crowd gasped as the human danced, yes, danced on wheels faster than some species could run. He circled Garthek like a ghost, carving weak points with focused attacks. Sparks flew, armor cracked, blood sprayed. For every blow the champion landed, Kade landed 3 more. He wasn't just fighting, he was proving something deeper. That weakness was often a lie told by those too strong to notice their own flaws. Garthek lifted Kade's entire chair into the air with a grunt, trying to slam him down. But Kade had prepared for that too. The bottom of his chair released. A burst charge, throwing the giant back and blasting him into a nearby wall. The audience fell silent again, shocked at what they were witnessing. The arena had never seen a warrior fight like this. Not with raw power, but with strategy, adaptation, and no ego. Kade rolled slowly toward the fallen champion. His energy blades flickered, overcharged from continuous use. Garthek tried to rise, but his leg servos sparked and failed. Kade stopped a meter away. "Finish it!" A voice screamed from the crowd. "Kill him," others chanted. But Kade looked up into the warlord's booth and shook his head. "Your champion is not dead. Let him live to remember who defeated him," he said. It was not mercy. It was domination. Letting the strongest fall but survive carried a heavier shame than death. Kade deactivated his weapons and turned his chair toward the exit. The silence of the arena was deeper than any victory roar. Garthek lowered his eyes in defeat. The Tharnak crowd, slowly at first, began to pound their fists to the ground in rhythm. It was not mockery anymore. It was respect. Kade reached the gates, and they opened before him. The guards who once looked down on him now stood aside like he was royalty. Inside the chambers, the arena master waited, expression unreadable. "You were not on the roster," he said. "You were not expected to last the first round." Kade wheeled past him, only pausing to answer with a smirk. That's the problem with expectations. They're often wrong. Back in his private quarters, Kade removed his chest plate and let out a slow breath. His body was scarred, burned, and sore. But his mind was clearer than ever. Years ago, a battlefield explosion took his legs, his rank, and his future. They said he was done. But today, on an alien world surrounded by monsters and mockery, he became a symbol of something greater, not just a survivor, not just a fighter, but a legend in making. Word of Kade's victory spread like wildfire across Tharnak and beyond. The footage was replayed on every channel, discussed in every tavern, and studied in every military academy on the planet. A human without legs had defeated the galaxies. Strongest champion in front of millions. The Tharnak warlords were stunned. For them, it was a crisis of pride. For others, it was an awakening. The alien races who lived under the Tharnak's rule suddenly had a new figure to look up to. A warrior who didn't come from strength or privilege but from pain and perseverance. Kade had become a symbol, whether he wanted to or not. He wasn't just the victor of the arena. He was the challenger of a system built on cruelty, mockery, and blood sport. And now, everyone wanted a piece of him. In the days following his battle, Kade was summoned to the High Tribunal Hall, a tower carved into the side of a mountain, guarded by elite warriors and filled with ancient laws. He rolled in with the same calm face, even as alien eyes glared at him from every side. The Tharnok Council stood waiting. Their leader, Warlord Raxgor, stepped forward with a voice like thunder. "You've disrupted the order of the arena," Raxgor said. "You've made a mockery of our tradition." Kade stared up at him with no fear. "No," he replied. "I followed your rules. I entered. I fought. I won," the council murmured. The truth was sharp. Raxgor narrowed his eyes. "You were not meant to survive. Your entry was a joke approved by a drunk scribe, but now the people chant your name." "Why?" Kade let his silence speak for a moment. Then he answered, "Because they saw someone they could become. Not a perfect warrior, but a real one." The council went quiet again. They couldn't punish him without looking weak. They couldn't praise him without losing face. So Raxgor gave a command that shocked even his own advisors. "The next trial of kings is in 7 days. You will represent Earth, win, and your people earn the right to rule a district of Tharnok. Lose, and you return to your broken planet." In shame, it was no simple challenge. The trial of kings was not one battle. It was 5 rounds of different combat styles: melee, ranged, team survival, arena puzzles, and a final duel. No human had ever entered, let alone one in a wheelchair. Kade didn't flinch. "Accepted," he said. And so began the countdown. Over the next days, Kade trained in a facility offered by neutral allies. The arena staff had expected him to rest, maybe retreat. Instead, he pushed himself beyond what most warriors could endure. He practiced with his blades, then with a staff attachment, then with shields. He installed modular systems on his chair wheels that could climb, arms that could grip, drones that could scout. He was turning his mobility into pure advantage. Watching from the shadows was a group of alien resistance leaders. They had been fighting against the Tharnok's rule for years, but had no figure to rally behind, until now. One of them, a blue-skinned tactician named Velra, approached Kade after his training. "You're not what we expected," she said. "Neither are you," he replied. Noticing the war medals on her collar, Velra offered him data arena maps, enemy weaknesses, past trial records. Kade accepted with a nod. He didn't care about rebellion, not yet, but he cared about winning. And every piece of information mattered. As the trial day neared, the air around the city changed. Crowds gathered outside, markets sold Kade figurines, and bets skyrocketed. He wasn't just a competitor anymore. He was hope with a blade. The day before the trial, Kade sat alone on a cliff overlooking the arena complex. Below him, fire pits blazed and banners waved. He remembered Earth, not the cities, but the hospital bed where doctors told him he'd never walk again. He remembered his brother's funeral, the battlefield that left him broken. But he also remembered his promise. If he ever rose again, he'd rise for more than himself. Down in the arena's holding cells, the other competitors arrived. All were champions of their species. One had 6 arms and venomous skin. Another had telekinetic abilities. They looked at Kade with confusion, then laughter. But that laughter didn't sting anymore. It just proved they still underestimated him, which meant they'd already lost. Kade rolled back to his quarters, checked the systems on his chair, and powered down the lights. The final message from the arena administration had already arrived. One line glowing in red across his screen. Trial of Kings begins at dawn. Asterisk, the arena gates opened at dawn, and the sun poured golden fire across the blood-stained sand. Thousands of spectators filled the stadium, chanting in a dozen alien languages. Their voices merged into one thunderous rhythm as the trial of kings began. Each competitor stood at their platform, tall, muscular, armed with weapons powered by alien tech. In the center of them all was Kade, seated in his upgraded combat chair, expression calm and steady. The first round was melee combat. No shields, no projectiles, only raw close-quarter fighting. Kade faced 3 opponents simultaneously. A clawed insectoid from the Ontu hives, a double-bladed war priest from the volcanic Zakari, and a sleek feline assassin from the Lorani sands. All 3 circled him like predators testing prey. Kade adjusted his wheels and activated the grip locks on the ground. Then he waited. The insectoid charged first, leaping into the air with a screech. Kade ducked his upper body and spun the chair beneath it, slicing upward with an energy blade hidden in the armrest. The strike shattered the creature's leg, and it crashed to the ground. The feline came next, moving in a blur. But Kade launched a pulse from his front wheel, knocking her back mid-dash. The Zakari priest hesitated for a fraction too long. Kade boosted forward, switching his blade arm for a staff attachment mid-motion. He struck low, then high, then directly into the Zakari's solar node. One after another, the enemies fell, and the crowd erupted in disbelief. Kade had won the first round using not just technology, but pure precision and prediction. His combat chair wasn't a crutch, it was a battlefield throne. The second round tested ranged combat in a simulated war zone. Each fighter was given a plasma rifle and 1 drone for tracking. Kade's drone was different. It wasn't fast, but it was smart. Built by Earth's underground engineers, it could mark targets with thermal paint, letting Kade strike through. Cover, while others ran, he waited. When they chased, he trapped. When they hid, he flushed them out with low-range EMP bursts. By the end of the round, Kade had eliminated more opponents than anyone else. The alien broadcaster struggled to explain it. "He's thinking like a commander, not a brawler." One of them muttered. The truth was more direct. Kade didn't fight by rules made for the strong. He redefined them for the smart. The next round, however, would test something even harder: team survival. 6 competitors were thrown into the wild zones of Tharnuk's Death Ring. The goal was simple: survive 3 hours against the arena's roaming beasts and cooperate as a unit. Kade was placed with species that hated humans, mocked him openly, and questioned his use. But when the acid-spitting beasts arrived, it was Kade who had the only terrain-adaptable platform. He pulled teammates from sinkholes, stunned predators with electrified rims, and used his chair's side clamps to drag a wounded avian to safety. When one competitor's arm was caught in a thorn beast's jaw, Kade reversed into the creature at full speed, shattering its head against a rock. By the end, the entire squad stood behind him. They didn't like him, but they trusted him. Fourth round was the mental puzzle arena. Pressure chambers, timed teleport zones, logic-based traps. Most of the aliens had brawn, but few had human-style problem-solving. Kade approached the shifting maze not as a race, but as a rhythm. He mapped patterns with his drone, logged wall movements, and exploited every cycle. He was the only one to make it to the final gate without injury, 4 rounds down. 1 to go. The last was the final duel. A one-on-one battle against the highest-ranking trial warrior Lord Drixel, a 4-armed, battle-hardened monster with 2 centuries of arena experience. His skin was gold-plated. His fists could shatter stone. When he entered, the crowd bowed. When Kade entered, the crowd held its breath. They began with silence. No introductions, just movement. Drixel charged, swinging 2 energy axes with terrifying speed. Kade dodged using spin kicks from his chair's hover module. He retaliated with quick stabs from his wrist blades. The 2 danced around the arena like lightning and stone. Drixel's strikes broke pieces of the arena walls. Kade's slashes opened lines across Drixel's plated skin. Minutes passed. Sweat poured down Kade's neck. Sparks flew from his chair's lower motor. Drixel was bleeding from 6 places, but still stood firm. Then, Kade changed everything. He deactivated his weapons and looked up. "You want raw strength?" he said. "Try lifting me." Drixel laughed and lunged. But the moment his hands touched Kade, a flash grenade hidden in the seat exploded point blank. Blinded, Drixel staggered. Kade reactivated his blades and unleashed his final combo, an upward spinning strike from both arms, slashing Drixel across the chest and face. The alien roared, dropped to one knee, then collapsed fully. Silence, then eruption. The crowd stood, screamed, and wept. It was over. A legless human had done the impossible. Kade Brennan had won the trial. The arena lights dimmed as the announcer's voice boomed across the Coliseum, declaring Kade Brennan a new champion of the Trial of Kings. The crowd, a sea of alien faces, erupted in a roar so powerful it made the ground tremble. In the middle of it all sat Kade, his breathing heavy, his armor scorched, his blades coated in the blood of those who thought he would fall. Around him, fallen champions were being carried out by drones and medics. None had died, but none remained unbeaten. Tharnok Council, for the first time in recorded history, stood up in full to salute a human. Even Warlord Raxgor, who had once called him a joke, raised his clawed fist in silent acknowledgement. Kade didn't smile. He didn't need to. His victory was not for cheers or glory. It was for everyone who had ever been underestimated, discarded, or mocked for being different. In this moment, his silence spoke louder than all their voices combined. Security bots escorted Kade back to the upper chambers, where the ceremonial coronation would take place. Inside the chamber waited diplomats, rival warlords, and high-ranking species leaders who now looked at him with something between fear and admiration. The crown of trials, a metallic headpiece forged from past champions' weapons, was placed on a cushion in front of him. A robotic steward turned to Kade. "Do you accept the crown and the right to rule?" it asked. Kade didn't answer immediately. His eyes drifted toward the massive stained glass mural at the back of the room, an image of old champions, all towering and flawless, standing over the weak. He rolled forward, picked up the crown, and didn't place it on his head. Instead, he held it at his side. "I accept," he said. "But I don't wear symbols of power. I prove it in action." The gesture sent shockwaves through the council. It was tradition to wear the crown for all public appearances, but Kade had just made his own rules again, and no one dared challenge him. After all, who would now try to fight the human who'd bested them all? Outside, celebrations had begun. Merchants printed banners with his image. Children reenacted his moves with toy chairs. Even soldiers across the galaxy began painting his face on their armor. But Kade didn't stay for the celebration. Instead, he met quietly with Velra, the blue-skinned tactician who had first offered him help before the trials. She stood in a dark chamber, surrounded by holograms of resistance strongholds. "You've become more than a champion," she said. "You've become a spark. The people believe change is possible now." Kade nodded slowly, the exhaustion in his eyes deeper than it had ever been. "I didn't plan for this," he admitted. "I just wanted to prove I wasn't useless." Velra stepped forward and placed a clawed hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes the ones who don't seek power become the best ones to lead." She handed him a data crystal. Inside were reports of forced labor camps, tortured prisoners, and worlds stripped of resources under Tharnok control. Kade didn't flinch. "Then I guess I know where to start." The next days were filled with decisions. Kade was granted the right to rule a sector of Tharnok territory. Instead of building a palace, he built a rehab center for injured veterans and refugees. Instead of gathering riches, he sent resources to border colonies on the edge of collapse. The warlords scoffed at first, calling it weakness. But those same colonies began to resist the Tharnok's control. One by one, they stopped kneeling. Soon, Kade's influence spread, not through conquest, but through compassion. Yet that compassion didn't weaken his reputation. If anything, it made him more feared. Because even as he helped the broken, every soldier in the galaxy knew he could still destroy anyone who crossed him. He had defeated champions. He had rewritten the arena's legacy. And now he was reshaping the entire order. Some alien leaders tried to assassinate him. One poison attempt failed due to a medical filtration system he had secretly built into his armor. Another assassin tried to challenge him in a dark alley, only to be thrown across a wall by a hidden kinetic pulse in his wheelchair. "I'm not just a fighter in public," Kade told the attacker before turning him over to security. "I don't have the luxury of weakness anymore." One evening, Velra and Kade stood together watching the new statue being erected in the central square. It was not just of him, it showed him lifting a fallen warrior, a symbolic image that told the story of how he rose not by stepping on others, but by standing in front of them. "You're changing everything," Velra whispered. Kade nodded and replied, "But I'm not done yet." And deep inside him, Kade knew there was still one final truth left to face, one final arena he would have to enter. Asterisk, the calm didn't last long. A message arrived from the outer systems, marked with the seal of the Forbidden Circle, a ruthless league of ancient gladiators who lived outside the Tharnuk's control. They weren't bound by honor or law. They existed only to fight, to dominate, and to kill those who dared wear the crown of kings. Their message was short and brutal. "You took the title by show. We take it by death. Face our true champion at the pit of silence, or be branded a coward across the stars." The Tharnuk warlords begged Kade not to go. The pit of silence was a cursed arena deep in the ruins of a shattered moon. No audience, no cameras, just blood and sand. The Forbidden Circle played by no rules, but Kade didn't hesitate. "I don't run from challenges," he said as he rolled toward the war dock, his armor freshly polished, his blades sharpened. The silent moon awaited. And Kade went alone. The journey was cold and long. He landed on the gray surface of the forgotten moon, wheeling himself down a broken path surrounded by dead machines and rusted weapons. There, in the middle of cracked stone and endless silence, stood a lone figure, twice the height of any Tharnuk, covered in armor made from the bones of past champions. His name was Krathel. He had never been defeated, and no one had ever left his arena alive. "You should have stayed on your throne," Krathel growled, lifting a massive axe charged with dark energy. "You're no king, you're a story. And stories end here." Kade didn't flinch. He activated his blades and rolled forward. "Then let's finish the story properly," he replied. The arena had no cheering crowd, no banners. Just two warriors, one who ruled by fear, and one who rose through pain. The first strike came like a meteor. Krathel swung with enough force to split mountains. Kade dodged at the last second, the shockwave throwing him sideways. He hit the ground hard, sparks flying from his chair's joints. But he got back up. Krathel charged again. Kade launched countermeasures, mini blades, flash bombs, smoke bursts. None of it slowed Krathel down. This was different from every battle before. This was survival at the edge of death. Kade knew he couldn't win with weapons, not against a beast who had consumed legends. So he fought with his mind. He baited Krathel into chasing, lured him toward the ancient support pillars around the pit, then blasted them apart as the warrior swung. Dust and debris clouded the space. Kade zipped through the chaos, slicing behind Krathel's armor, targeting joints and weak spots. Each hit mattered. Not big wounds, but precise ones. Minutes passed, then an hour, then longer. Kade's power cells dropped. His chair's left wheel cracked. His left blade sputtered and died. But Krathel was limping now. His armor was dented, bleeding from cuts, gasping with fury. "You are broken," he roared. Kade grinned through the pain. "And yet I'm still here," he said, lunging forward with his final strike, a full-speed ram into the champion's core. Both of them crashed to the ground. The moon shook from the impact. Kade coughed blood. Krathel rose, then fell. Again, he didn't move. For the first time in history, the pit of silence ended in something it had never seen before. Victory for the one who should have never walked into it. Kade collapsed beside his opponent. No rescue ships, no medals, no throne waiting. Just dust and silence. He closed his eyes, whispering to himself, "Let this be enough." But as darkness crept in, a strange sound echoed. A ship, a small resistance craft piloted by Velra herself. "You stubborn fool," she muttered, rushing to lift him. "You actually won." They brought him back to Tharnuk, where even his enemies now stood in silence as he was carried into the city square. No celebration. No cheers, just respect. His chair was broken. His body was broken. But his name? It was untouchable. A legend not built from victory, but from will. A human who had no legs, no power, and no place in their world, yet took everything from those who ruled it. Kade refused the throne again. Instead, he created a new order. An alliance of broken warriors, rejected aliens, and lost survivors. He trained them, lifted them, and gave them what no empire ever had: hope. They called themselves the Silent Crown, not kings, not rulers, but protectors of those too often ignored. And though many wars came after, and many threats rose in distant galaxies, one truth echoed louder than all the others. The legless human had never been weak. He had only been waiting for the world to see what true strength looked like.